INFJs are often painted as the gentle healers of the personality world. But that's the biggest lie of all, because the truth? INFJs are not just rare, they're dangerous. They can predict your next move, hack your emotions, and make you believe you've seen their soul, when all you've seen is a mask. Today, I'm exposing the 10 powers that make INFJs both the most magnetic and the most unsettling people you'll ever meet. Let's dive right in. Let's start with their most shocking paradox. The paradox of mercy and cruelty. INFJs are often celebrated as some of the most compassionate people on the planet. They forgive, they understand, and they absorb the pain of others almost without question. To most people, that looks like endless patience and unconditional kindness. But here's the paradox that makes them so mysterious. Their mercy isn't infinite. In fact, it's selective. When someone crosses a certain invisible line, an INFJ can flip from being your greatest protector to your coldest judge. And here's the chilling part. They won't scream, they won't explode, they won't even argue. They'll let you burn quietly in the fire of your own guilt. For an INFJ, silence is often the harshest form of punishment, because they understand something most people don't. They know that your conscience can torture you far worse than their words ever could. Sometimes they even withhold forgiveness on purpose, not out of cruelty in the childish sense, but out of something far more deliberate. They know that if you sit with your mistake long enough, if you have to replay your betrayal or your lie in your own mind without their comfort, it can break you down more effectively than any confrontation ever would. And here's what makes this so controversial. On the surface, it looks like passivity. But it's not passive at all. It's a psychological power move. It's a refusal to give you the closure you desperately want. And by withholding that closure, they hold all the power. People who have been cut off by an INFJ often describe it as haunting. The silence eats away at them. They question themselves endlessly. They wonder what went wrong. They replay conversations in their head over and over, searching for answers. But the INFJ never provides them, because in their mind, the verdict has already been delivered. So the INFJ is both merciful and merciless. They can forgive endlessly. But the moment they decide you don't deserve it, their compassion becomes a cage you'll never escape. That's the paradox that makes them so magnetic and so terrifying at the same time. And next up, we've got the time traveler's mind. Most people experience time in a straight line. They replay the past when they're nostalgic or regretful, and they imagine the future when they're planning or daydreaming. But INFJs blur these two timelines together in a way that feels almost supernatural. For them, the past and the future coexist in the present moment, constantly influencing each other. An INFJ doesn't just remember what happened, they relive it with emotional intensity. Past conversations, betrayals, and even small details can hit them with the same force years later. But here's where it gets uncanny. While they're reliving those moments, their mind is already projecting how those experiences will echo forward into the future. It's like standing outside of time, watching the dominoes fall in both directions at once. This is why INFJs often feel prophetic. They can sense patterns that others miss. They can look at a situation and intuitively know where it's heading, not because they're psychic, but because their mind is a constant simulator of cause and effect. They see how small details ripple into big consequences. They notice how unspoken words shape future conflicts. They know, often with eerie accuracy, how people's stories are going to play out. But here's the haunting curse of this power. They can't unsee it. Imagine watching a close friend walk into a relationship you know is toxic. You can see the signs. You can see the heartbreak waiting at the end, but no matter how you try to warn them, they won't listen. So you're left with this sinking feeling of watching a train wreck in slow motion. That's what the INFJ lives with constantly. And it's exhausting. Carrying the past while predicting the future makes it hard for them to stay grounded in the present. They can feel haunted by what has already happened and burdened by what hasn't even happened yet. It's like their mind is always 2 steps ahead, but their heart is still stuck in yesterday. This is why so many INFJs look wise beyond their years. It's not just maturity, it's that they've mentally lived through cycles of cause and effect so many times that they feel older than they actually are. They aren't just time travelers in thought, they're time travelers in soul. And that prophetic insight is exactly what makes them both captivating and deeply misunderstood. And third on the list, the emotional hacker. Most hackers use code. They learn to exploit weaknesses in a system, find the back doors, and take control without the system realizing it. INFJs do the same thing, but with people. Instead of code, they hack emotions. They notice the micro expressions others overlook, the subtle hesitation in your tone, the flicker in your eyes when you lie, the shift in your energy when a certain topic comes up. To most people, these details are invisible. To an INFJ, they're flashing red alerts. And once they see those patterns, they can map out your emotional triggers with frightening accuracy. Here's where it gets controversial. If an INFJ wants to, they can bypass your logic entirely and go straight for your feelings. They can make you feel safe enough to spill secrets you swore you'd never tell. They can nudge you into making a decision that feels like it was completely yours, even if they quietly steered you there. They can trigger your motivation, your guilt, or your confidence with a single sentence. Most of the time, INFJs use this gift to comfort, to heal, or to inspire. But make no mistake, this power cuts both ways. Because if they choose to, they can destabilize someone just as easily as they can uplift them. And the scariest part is that you might never realize it was intentional. This is why people often describe INFJs as manipulative without being able to prove it. It's not that they sit down and plot out ways to control people. It's that their natural ability to read emotions is so advanced that influencing others becomes second nature. It's like breathing to them. They cannot notice what makes you tick. And here's the hook that makes this so unsettling. You might think you're having an honest conversation, making your own choices, following your own heart. But what if the INFJ sitting across from you has already decoded your entire emotional operating system and gently rewritten the script in your head? That's the power of the emotional hacker. It's not loud. It's not obvious. It's silent, invisible, and terrifyingly effective. All right, moving on to point number 4. The architect of personas. Most people have one personality they carry into every situation, with only slight variations depending on where they are. But INFJs don't just adjust, they construct. They are architects of personas, building versions of themselves the way others build wardrobes. There's the healer persona, who listens with deep empathy and makes others feel safe. There's the mentor persona, who guides with wisdom and authority. There's the mystic persona, who seems otherworldly, almost prophetic. And then there's the chameleon, the one who blends into any group so seamlessly that nobody even notices they're adapting in real time. To the people around them, each of these personas feels completely genuine. And that's because, in the moment, they are. INFJs aren't faking it. They're expressing a fragment of themselves that they've carefully pulled forward to match the situation. But here's the controversial truth. None of these masks are the full INFJ. They're only partial blueprints, projections designed to fit the people around them. And this creates one of the most frustrating paradoxes for anyone who loves an INFJ. You think you've seen the real them, the version nobody else gets to see, but the reality? You've only seen the version they chose to give you. You might be holding their healer mask, while someone else holds their mystic one. And the true INFJ, the core behind all of those designs, remains hidden. Even more unsettling is that sometimes INFJs themselves forget where the mask ends and where they begin. After years of building personas for different people, they can start to lose track of who they actually are when nobody's watching. It's like living in a house of mirrors, with endless reflections and no way to know which one is the original. This is why INFJs are often described as mysterious or impossible to fully understand. It's not because they're withholding everything out of malice. It's because their entire identity is layered, multifaceted, and carefully architected. You're not meeting one INFJ. You're meeting dozens of them, all wrapped in one mind. And here's the most dangerous part. These masks aren't just for protection. They're tools. By wearing the right mask at the right time, an INFJ can gain trust, unlock secrets, and shape the energy of a room without ever revealing their true hand. That's why they're not just chameleons, they're architects. And the structure they're building isn't just their persona, it's the entire dynamic between them and you. And fifthly, the chessboard mind. To the outside world, INFJs may appear calm, even passive. They don't always rush to speak, they don't always show their hand, and they rarely act without thinking. But beneath that quiet surface is something most people never see. A constant simulation of possibilities, like a living chessboard running inside their mind. Every word you say, every gesture you make, every choice you lean toward becomes a piece on that board. And the INFJ isn't just watching the move in front of them. They're already calculating the next 5 that will follow. They're imagining not just your action, but your reaction to your action. And then they're quietly mapping out what they will do in return. This is why arguing with an INFJ can feel impossible. By the time you formed your first counterpoint, they've already played out 10 different versions of the argument in their head and prepared responses for each one. They don't need to scramble for words. They've already traveled the path and chosen the strategy before you even got there. But here's the darker side. This chessboard mind doesn't stop at conversations. It extends to relationships, careers, even entire life paths. INFJs run endless what-if scenarios about the people in their lives. What if they betray me? What if they succeed? What if they fail? What if I walk away? And each simulation comes with predicted outcomes, emotional consequences, and ripple effects. It's not manipulation in the cartoonish sense. It's strategy. They are constantly simulating the psychology of others in order to navigate a world that often feels chaotic and unsafe. And while this makes them brilliant problem solvers, it also makes them intimidating. Because when an INFJ finally makes a move, it's rarely random. It's usually the result of countless mental battles you didn't even know they were fighting, and this is what makes INFJs so dangerous to underestimate. You may think they're just quiet observers in the background, but in reality, they're already 3 steps ahead calculating your moves before you've even decided on them. By the time you make your play, they already know how the game ends. The chessboard mind is not about dominance for the sake of ego, it's about survival, influence, and control. And when used with precision, it can make an INFJ one of the most formidable strategists you'll ever encounter. Sixthly, the saint with a knife. INFJs are often described as saints. They heal, they nurture, they inspire. They're the people you run to when your world is falling apart, and they're the ones who seem to carry endless compassion on their shoulders. But here's the unsettling truth. Behind the softness, behind the patience, behind the calm, every INFJ carries a hidden blade. That blade isn't physical, it's psychological. And when someone threatens their values, endangers their loved ones, or pushes them too far, that blade comes out with surgical precision. The same mind that heals with empathy can also dismantle someone's ego, slice through their illusions, and leave scars that are not visible on the skin, but deep in the mind. This isn't rage-driven or impulsive. That's what makes it so terrifying. The INFJ's strike is calculated. It's intentional. They don't lash out in anger. They wait. They observe. And when the time is right, they deliver words or actions so sharp that the other person is left stunned, wondering how someone so gentle could cut so deeply. And here's where it gets paradoxical. The INFJ doesn't see this as cruelty. To them, it's justice. It's balance. They are saints until you cross the line of their moral code. Once that line is crossed, they believe it is their responsibility to act, to remove masks, to expose lies, and sometimes to deliver a lesson that will never be forgotten. The people who experience this side of an INFJ often describe it as shocking. One moment, they're comforted by warmth, and the next, they're pierced by truths so painful they can't sleep at night. It feels like betrayal. But for the INFJ, it's protection. For themselves, for their values, and sometimes for the very person they've cut down. And here's the viral insight. INFJs aren't just saints. They're saints with knives hidden under their robes. Most people will never see the blade, but the ones who do never forget it. Because when an INFJ finally decides to strike, it's not messy, it's not loud, it's clean, silent, and unforgettable. The knife is the reason you should never mistake an INFJ's kindness for weakness. It's not weakness at all, it's restraint. And when that restraint is gone, the saint disappears, and all that remains is the blade. Seventhly, the beautiful lie of the INFJ. The most mysterious power of an INFJ isn't their intuition or their empathy. It's their ability to convince you that you know them. They let you see just enough of their heart, just enough of their pain, just enough of their depth, that you walk away believing you've unlocked their soul. And that illusion is the most beautiful lie they tell. It's not deception in the traditional sense. They aren't deliberately trying to trick you. Instead, it's part of how they survive. INFJs reveal fragments of themselves strategically. They show the sides that make others feel connected, compassion, vision, understanding. And because these glimpses feel so raw, so vulnerable, people assume it must be the whole truth. But it isn't. It's just a sliver. Here's where the paradox cuts deep. Even people closest to INFJs, partners, family, lifelong friends, can walk away one day and realize they never actually knew the real person. What they knew was a curated version, a partial truth dressed up as authenticity. It feels like betrayal, but in reality, it's protection. The INFJ doesn't lie to manipulate in a cruel way. They lie by omission. They conceal parts of themselves too complex, too heavy, or too contradictory for others to handle. And in doing so, they maintain an aura of mystery that keeps people addicted to chasing the real them. The irony? Even INFJs often wonder who that real self actually is. After years of projecting different versions for different people, they sometimes lose track of their own unmasked identity. This is why relationships with INFJs often feel cosmic, like soul bonds. They give you just enough to convince you that you've reached a depth no one else has. But the truth? No one ever sees the full picture. Not you, not their family, not even themselves. That's why it's called a beautiful lie. It's beautiful because it makes others feel special, chosen, deeply understood. But it's a lie because it's never the whole truth. And this is the INFJ's ultimate power. They are both the mirror and the mask. Both the truth and the illusion. You fall in love with what they've shown you, but you'll never touch the entire reality hiding underneath. Eighthly, master manipulators of energy. Here's a controversial truth that most people never say out loud. INFJs know how to manipulate energy, and not in the mystical crystal healing sense, in the psychological sense. They can walk into a room and subtly shift the emotional climate without even speaking. If the room is tense, they instinctively soften it. If it's chaotic, they can ground it. If someone is spiraling, they can anchor them. And on the flip side, if they choose to, they can push the energy in the opposite direction. They can plant words, gestures, or silences that ignite anxiety, stir conflict, or expose hidden tension. The unsettling part is that most of the time, this doesn't even look intentional. People just feel different around them. Some describe it as calming, others describe it as unsettling, like someone is quietly pulling invisible strings. But make no mistake, this is influence. And whether they admit it or not, INFJs know they have it. This is why INFJs often end up as leaders, counselors, or even secret power brokers in their social circles. They don't dominate with volume or charisma. They dominate with presence. Their ability to read emotional undercurrents and then redirect them makes them masters of social dynamics. It's the kind of power most people don't notice until they've already been moved by it. But here's where it gets even darker. Because energy manipulation doesn't always stay positive. Sometimes an INFJ will withhold their calming presence to make you feel the weight of your own chaos. Sometimes they'll deliberately mirror your negativity back to you, amplifying it until you're forced to face yourself. And sometimes they'll channel their influence like a scalpel, subtle, precise, and devastatingly effective. The catch is that INFJs rarely use this power openly. It's quiet. It's invisible. It's not about domination for ego. It's about control for survival, justice, or protection. But the result is the same. Being in the orbit of an INFJ means you are being influenced, whether you realize it or not. This is why people describe them as magnetic, haunting, or even intimidating, without knowing why. It's not something they do, it's something they are. The energy of an INFJ doesn't just sit in a room, it reshapes it. Last but not least, the shadow hunter. Most people look at others and see their strengths. They notice the charm, the achievements, the image someone projects to the world. INFJs see all of that too, but that's not where their attention lingers. An INFJ's gaze goes deeper, past the surface, past the masks, into the places most people don't want to look. They are shadow hunters. An INFJ can unconsciously track the things you avoid, the topics you change quickly, the way your eyes flinch when someone mentions a certain name, the nervous laugh you use to cover pain. These details are invisible to most people, but to an INFJ, they're like breadcrumbs leading directly to your shadow. The parts of yourself you hide, deny, or repress. And here's what makes this so powerful and so dangerous. When the moment comes, they can bring that shadow into the light in a single sentence. One well-placed observation, one cutting remark, and suddenly the thing you've been bearing for years is exposed. It feels like they've stripped away your armor and left you standing defenseless. Some experience this as healing. To be seen so completely can feel liberating, like someone has finally named the truth you've been too afraid to face. But others experience it as terrifying, because the INFJ doesn't just see your potential, they see your wounds. And once they've spoken them aloud, you can't hide behind illusions anymore. The shadow hunter power isn't always intentional. Sometimes INFJs reveal truths without realizing how deeply they'll cut. Other times, though, it's deliberate. When someone has crossed them, or when they believe it's time for someone to face themselves, they won't hesitate to draw the shadow out and place it in front of you like a mirror you can't look away from. This is why people often describe INFJs as unsettling. Being around them feels like standing in front of an X-ray machine. You can smile, you can perform, you can charm, but somewhere deep down, you know they see the fractures you don't want anyone to notice. And this is the ultimate INFJ paradox. They can be healers who guide you toward wholeness, or hunters who expose the parts of you you'd rather keep hidden forever. Light and shadow, saint and executioner. That duality is what makes INFJs the most mysterious of all. So, what do you think? Are INFJs misunderstood visionaries or quiet manipulators? Are they healers or hunters? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because this is where the debate begins. And if you know an INFJ, share this with them, just to see if they admit any of it. Until next time, remember, the rarest people often carry the darkest powers.